Hello, beautiful conscious creators. I hope that you have started your day with nothing short of health, wealth, peace, love, and light. As we explore healing and conscious creation together in this space, I hope that you'll remember to be kind and patient with yourself and your thoughts. Sorry, my voice is a little croaky. It will adjust along as the episode goes on, because I just woke up and I realized that I needed to record just in advance because, preparation, we learn our lessons. And as promised, in the last episode, I mentioned that I'm gonna go over how when we are trying to create things consciously, time is never a factor. And of course, the human mind and how we anticipate things does feel like certain things take a bit of time. And because we experience time in a linear fashion, the human mind experiences time in a linear fashion. But when you know and understand that things are being orchestrated in your favor in order to get you to have the best outcomes. So one of the affirmations that I have is everything is unfolding for me exactly as it should be, right? And understanding that and knowing that part, or knowing that deeply, or feeling rather that affirmation deeply, and knowing that I resonate with it completely, just gives me a sense of patience and peace, and knowing that everything is unfolding for me, so I don't have to overthink it and I don't have to worry about it. And regardless of the time frame that my human mind perceives that it shows up, regardless of that time frame, I know it will unfold for me at the perfect time. And before I get further into the episode, song recommendation, Lost Words by Kenny Beats. It doesn't really have a lot of lyrics. It's just like one of those lo-fi kind of songs, and I kind of like it, so I'm sharing it with you today. So, time is never a factor. And as I'd said, the human mind, we perceive things in quite a linear fashion, because we see from past, present, future, right? But what we're not experiencing, or what we're not seeing, is the things that are happening behind the scenes. And 3 factors that I thought of this morning that I thought I should share with you is, the first factor is that sometimes these things take a bit of time to show up because we are in a rush. And we don't realize how much we are in a rush for those things to show up. And so we delay the process, or rather the process feels delayed because we are already anticipating it so much, and our energy becomes anxious. There's a lot of angst around it, because this is, like with desires, with things that we truly want to experience. Sometimes they do feel far removed from us because they only exist in our imagination at the moment, right? But lead by faith and not by sight, by believing that your outcome, by believing that this desire that you experience, because it will be a pang, and you'll realize that, I have a certain desire, right? And it's only in my imagination for now. So how do I bring it into my reality? And that is creating it consciously. Dream about it, feel it, imagine that it's already happened, because the things that have already happened, the things that feel like they already exist in our lives, persist. They persist in our reality because they already exist. When you believe something is already yours, the trick. Oh yes, that's the bar that Russ dropped. I didn't really I'd forgotten what the bar was, but in his song Reasons, the one that I shared in the last episode, he says the trick is to think that you're rich, or the trick is to think that you're rich already. Yeah. So when we have these desires, we are in anticipation of them. And by knowing and believing and starting to tap into the energy and the frequency that this desire actually belongs to me, like, and regardless of when it shows up, I don't have to rush its unfolding, because it needs to unfold perfectly and at the right time for you, because it always does. Things will always show up in your reality at the perfect time, and you'll only perceive this perfect timing once it shows up, because you'll have an understanding of why things needed to show up the way in which they did. The only work that you need to do is just to exist in the end, persist in the end. Know that it's already done. Everything has worked out in your favor. And so by knowing that it's already shown up, or knowing that it's already yours, you don't feel the need to anticipate. And so you don't rush. You don't want to rush the showing up of it, because when you have a knowing and understanding that everything is working out in your favor, then you relax. You begin to relax into that knowing, and the universe, God, will always bring these things into fruition for you. And now the second thing is, I know I used to do this a lot, and it's part of the anticipating side of things, is that I used to imagine all the scenarios of how it would show up. So I wanted to be in control. Oh, not necessarily that I wanted to be in control, but there was a certain level of control that I thought I could have in the unfolding of my manifestations by trying to imagine now how it would show up. So now there's a difference between imagining the scenario. Say for instance, you want to, as an example, say for instance, you want to manifest a relationship, and then you start imagining someone approaching you, and then the next time you're imagining or rather a specific person, because this is what I used to do with like my specific person manifestation, until I like slowed down on the specific person manifestation. I'd always anticipate like me seeing them in this area and in like a certain place I would go to and visit, and the type of interaction we'd have. But then I'd always backtrack in terms of that imagination, because there was a lot of friction in that manifestation. But with other things, not necessarily that specific person, with other specific people, I'd always just imagine them in my mind and let go. But with this one, because there was already enough friction, or enough there are things that I had already experienced with this person, that my imagination would go back and forth between having a solid good experience with them and an experience where I would reject them, because I had felt rejected in some moments, in some cases. So it was just like back and forth energy, like hot and cold energy. So it just didn't end up showing up, because I'd imagined so many different scenarios, but those scenarios were hot and cold. They were never solid. They were never, not solid is not the right word. They were never consistent in the good feelings that existed around how I imagined this person. And so they never really showed up in my reality, until I learned to just use one specific imaginal act and not try to over imagine things. Because I don't know if you've heard, né? But there are some cases where someone will say, I had already given up on my dream. I'd already given up, which leads me now into the third point of how our dreams show up when we are prepared for them. But before we get into it, sometimes someone will say, yeah, no, I'd already given up on trying to receive that thing, right? It's because now, it's not because the dream, the person had already given up on their dream. It's because in a way they'd let go and allowed things to show up. They'd stopped overthinking that thing. They'd stopped letting it run in their mind consistently. Everything, every thought that they would think about would relate to that specific thing. And because they've now given up, then suddenly it shows up. It's not the giving up that happened. It's not the giving up that happened. What happened was they let go of it and allowed the universe to show, or let this manifestation unfold magically without them having to imagine scenarios of how it will show up. Sorry, there's something happening outside. Instead of being in anticipation and, trying to imagine all the different scenarios, like walking into a place and expecting this thing to show up, you are trying to curate the experience of the magic that is possible out there. When I learned to trust in God, when I learned to trust in the universe, I realized that there's certain, like, in trusting, in knowing that I can trust the universe will work things out for me in my favor, I realized that there's so much magic in the universe that I cannot imagine all the possibilities that exist of how things will show up in my reality. And once I leaned into trust and said, okay, I'm leaning into trust, meaning I can relax, meaning I can let this thing play out and the universe do its magical things, because there are so many possibilities that exist. And I don't have the capacity to imagine all of those possibilities. So when people say, yeah, nah, I've already given up on the dream, they'd let go enough for it to show up in a way that they couldn't have possibly imagined. And it usually happens, you'll realize I'm pretty sure there are cases in your life where you're like, I couldn't have imagined this happening this way. This is not something that I could have perceived at that time. And once you have that understanding, like when you make those connections, then you realize that by trusting and just saying, I don't have to over imagine the different scenarios. Yes, lean into one specific imaginal act and persist in good feelings, but don't try to imagine how it will show up. Imagine the end goal. The idea is to envision the end goal. Envision yourself, like I was saying, in that relationship. Envision yourself like maybe you want like a back rub or something. Envision the back rub. Don't try to now curate how the back rub will happen. Don't try to now play out the conversation of how the back rub will happen. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah, I am making sense. But your focus and your energy needs to be solely on you experiencing that back massage and enjoying the feeling of that back massage. And then suddenly someone out of nowhere, it could be a random person. Okay, no, don't let it be a random person, because now that's, but like it could show up in such a random way. Someone just offers to like someone that offers to just stretch out. Or you could be walking in a mall and someone like the people who do massages there, and they offer you a free spa day. You don't know how things will show up. So by letting go and not over imagining things, that's when the universe has the space to do its magic and let things unfold for you in your favor. That's the second thing. And lastly, sometimes we are not prepared for our manifestations, and that's why it takes a bit of time, because maybe there are certain lessons that we needed to learn along the way. Now I'm gonna be consistent with like imagining this relationship. Maybe there are parts of you that needed to heal certain traumas in certain aspects, so that when you do end up receiving this relationship that you desire, this is something that a healthy relationship with someone else, instead of self-sabotaging when you get it, then you have learned enough lessons to say, oh no, I've healed from this. And it's not to say you have to be completely healed. There's no one exists in relationship that is completely healed. I mean, okay, I can't say no one because I don't know everyone, but we grow and we learn in our relationships, right? But maybe there are certain aspects of us that will tend to self-sabotage for this specific manifestation that you're trying to create in your reality. Maybe you'll end up self-sabotaging, and so the universe will give you certain scenarios, circumstances that allow you to realize and become aware of your self-sabotaging ways. And so when this relationship comes in, this desired healthy relationship that is going to stand the test of time, when that shows up in your reality, when that, this man or woman comes in, and you now have an awareness of when you are in self-sabotaging mode, maybe because of fear based on the things that you'd experienced in the past. When you become aware of these self-sabotaging ways, then you know that, oh, okay, I'm self-sabotaging in this moment. And you can have a conversation with your person about what is happening, because there's, in healthy relationships, there's vulnerability. You can be vulnerable with the person, and that's what makes them healthy, because you get to share the different sides of yourself. And so sometimes we're not prepared, and it does take a bit of time so that we can learn things along the way, and it doesn't always have to be lessons. But without going further into this episode, like, I've highlighted 3 points that I wanted to share with you today, and I think I'm just going to leave it at that. So thank you for watching all the way to the end. My name is Ubageng, and I'm your accidental therapist.